So when we talk about consumer surplus, basically we're talking about the price, the difference between the price consumers are willing to pay and the price they actually paid. That is consumer surplus. Do you get what I'm saying? The price consumers are willing to pay and the difference between the price consumers are willing to pay and the price they actually paid. So the price they are willing to pay will be based on the equilibrium. Then what was the price they actually paid? So that's about consumer surplus. And for producer surplus, we're talking about the price producers are willing to supply in the market and the price they actually sold the product. That is producer surplus. I think that is clear. I'm going to write them anyway. So look at this graph here. We have changing in consumer and producer surplus with the rise in demand. Before now, let me see if we can find, okay, yeah, wait. This is a typical graph for producer and consumer surplus. For consumer surplus, the consumer surplus is about here because this is the equilibrium price. The price consumers are willing to pay is within this shaded part. And the price they actually paid, this is the equilibrium. So if anything they pay, if they are paying with equilibrium, that means whatever happens here is the surplus. For producers, it's also at equilibrium, but the surplus will be the fact that they are able to sell where consumers are able to buy at the price they are able to buy. So the difference between what is being sold and the price at which is being sold is the producer surplus. The difference between what is being bought and the price at which is being bought is consumer surplus. Do you get the point here? So based on this, these are consumer surplus, which is at JGH. This is consumer surplus. JGH is consumer surplus, and FJG is our producer surplus. I think it's clear. So what happens if demand increases in the market? If demand increases in the market, consumer surplus, producer surplus will change also. That is what we are doing now. So, changing consumer producer surplus with a rise in demand. A rise in demand from D1 to D2 increases producer surplus from FJG. This is producer surplus, you know. As soon as demand increases in the market from D1 to D2, what happens? Producer surplus will increase from this point to this point. Do you get it? Because it means that producers will be making more because demand has increased. So look at it here, from FJG, which is producer surplus, becomes JGM. This is a new producer surplus. Why? Because there's an increase in the quantity demanded of the product. So an increase in the quantity demanded of a product will also increase producer surplus from the point at which it was to a new point. Is it clear? So that's for MKL. Then, what happens to consumer surplus? Note that consumer surplus is between this. This is the point of producer surplus, this. Consumer surplus. But an increase in the quantity demanded will increase consumer surplus into this. So the new consumer surplus will be MKL. This is a new consumer surplus. From MJG to MKL. Do you get it or not? This is for producer surplus. Remember our producer surplus. Initially, our producer surplus is MJG. This is our producer surplus. That's the difference between what producers are willing to sell and the price they actually sold. As soon as there is an increase in the quantity demanded of the product from D1 to D2, producer surplus will also increase from MJG to JGMK. That's JGKM. This is a new producer surplus. These points. For consumers, because they also increase their product, they increase their demand, they're also going to have an increase in consumer surplus. From this point to the new point. I think that is clear. That's for producer and consumer surplus. Then, what happens to supply? Change in consumer and producer surplus with a rise in supply. A rise in supply will also shift or increase producer surplus and consumer surplus. But when there's a rise in supply, consumers tend to benefit more. For this, producer tends to benefit more. Do you know what I'm saying here? So, do you get it or not?
Yeah, I do.
Whenever there's an increase in quantity demanded of a product, it means consumer wants the product more. This is what firms would reflect on to respond with, to produce more, and they increase their own output. They increase their output and price. So their producer surplus will also increase. When it comes to demand and supply increasing in the market, consumers tend to enjoy or benefit more. So here, it has the supply from S1 to S to increase producer surplus from JKH to FGM. So this is the new producer surplus. Then what happens to consumers? Consumer surplus will increase also from JKH, from HKL, from HKL to MGL. So this is the new consumer surplus. This is the old one. This is the old consumer surplus, and now this is the new consumer surplus. So when you check the consumer surplus, you see that the consumer surplus is more than the producer surplus. Do you get it? Based on the graph, the consumer surplus is more than producer surplus here. And when you check this, producer surplus is more than consumer surplus. Because at this point in time, suppliers, they tend to enjoy more. At this point in time, consumer tends to enjoy more. Here, producers enjoy more. Here, consumer enjoys more. Because here, supply is increasing. Here, demand is increasing. Firms will reflect or respond to this. Consumers will respond to this. Because now, the firms are vulnerable to consumers. Here, consumers are vulnerable to producers. Is it clear? So I'm going to write it down.